Potentially.
That's how I feel. I missed an opportunity. I know this video is going to be pretty long, but I missed an opportunity to start the video and be like,
Hi, I represent Ubisoft. Welcome, your soul is mine.
hello and welcome to Ginger Prime. My name's Brian if you're new around here, but if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back, you beautiful, magnificent beast. That's what you get for subscribing, by the way. Free compliments at the start of these videos. Today, I'm wearing a little bit of green, so there's a little bit of visual stuff, but it's going to be a lot of fun as we dive into the latest Ubisoft news, especially as it relates to NFTs. I know that seems to be the 2022 buzzword. And if you... anyway, we're going to dive into this this interview, especially as it relates to what Ubisoft's saying specifically, give you guys my thoughts as we dive into it. You're always welcome to share yours, whether you're with me here live or just in the comments below of this video itself. I thought this was going to be interesting. I'll include a link to this full interview if you go and want to just read it to yourself. You don't want to necessarily have my thoughts on it, but let's go ahead and first and foremost dive into it. Let's see here. All right, this is from finder.com.au. So again, like link in this in the description. On December 7th in 2021, Ubisoft became the first big name game developer to publicly enter the NFT space. So, since the launch of the Ubisoft Digits and NFT and the Quartz platform did not go well, gamer feedback was negative to the point of being aggressive, as gamers are want to do. The big name in games press has also been tepid in their analysis, and though one way or the other, this is a landmark moment in gaming. Landmark. I kind of feel a little bit of bias already in this reporting. All right, let's continue. I can understand why gamers are wary, but I personally do not share the anger. In fact, I was excited by the launch of the Quartz and Digits, albeit with an asterisk. Maybe we'll find out what this asterisk is here in a second. Having worked in the games media for well over 2 decades, I'm about the experience first and foremost. I play for fun. I am not interested in investing or in making money from games, but then also having kept a close eye on blockchain and NFT games over the last 4 years, I can see the potential in the technology it has to offer a greater freedom. If products like Ubisoft Quartz and Digits, you can trust that there'll be more to come, are handled correctly, there's going to be plenty of gamers to gain. Gamers to gain. Okay, that's all right. It is how it is. True ownership of not just the product, but a stake in the gaming ecosystem we create through play and community is the future and has a positive potential if done right. If promises are kept. That's the guy's already putting a lot of trust in it. And I'm not going to blame him for putting trust in it, but the if statements, if promises are kept, like I think a lot of us have seen like promises that are just there and then they just evaporate like the wind, and eventually then I always kind of feel like it's gamers that end up having to hold the bag. But anyway, will Ubisoft do it right, or will Quartz and Digits be the demon spawn that devour our beloved hobby? Let's dive in. All right, so I presented my fears to Nicholas Pouard, the VP at Ubisoft Strategic Innovations Lab, and the man leading the charge on Quartz and Digits to see how he would respond to the hate that these products have generated. You released a product and everybody hates you. This is what he has to say, and with help from Dilger Genevas, Ubisoft's blockchain technical director. So note this interview was conducted in English, and which is their second language for both Poland and Genevas. Gamer. Feedback of the Ubisoft Quartz and Digits launch has been generally negative. What has the feedback told you about the prospects of mainstream NFT success? So Nicholas writes, well, it was a reaction that we were expecting. We know it's not an easy concept to grasp, but Quartz is really just the first step that should lead to something bigger, something that will be more easily understood by our players. That is the way we think about it, and why we will keep experimenting, and we will keep releasing features and services around this first initiative. And our belief is that piece by piece, the puzzle will be revealed and understood by our players. We hope that they will better understand the value that we offer them. What do you guys think about it right now? Like, I'm gonna feel free to kind of weigh in, especially on any of these comments, and let me know what you guys think, because I'm generally curious to make sure that I'm also on this. Like, I have really weird mixed feelings. Like, if you guys saw my NFT video about the impact on MMORPGs, like at the end of the day, when these things get set, like when ecosystems get built around them, it becomes very hard to change them because you have a lot of people who essentially have a vested interest in maintaining a status quo. And that's where my concern, especially as it relates to that, we see this in all kinds of industries where sometimes they get so big and they get so supported by all these other subsystems that people don't want necessary change. And so that's kind of where I see how it's happening. And so chat saying that NFT is just an evolution of the microtransaction, the MTX 2.0. And I also want to make sure I always clearly state this to the error or the ire of several gamers out there. The MTX doesn't personally bother me when I trust and, trust the company, and the company does good games, right? I have no problem supporting, a game, especially I have my preferred methods. I'd rather just outright buy my game and be done with it. But the reality, when you just look at the sheer numbers of it, is that clearly MTX has been the global domination winner, and the evolution of that's going to be really interesting to see. Lothger, first time in chatter, sorry, I'm probably butchering your name, says gamers are dumb, and I see this as a scam, is what they think. Is that basically what you think he's summarizing this as? Is like, hey, they're just too dumb to get it. It's a hard concept to grasp. It's a hard concept to grasp. Thanks. Like, explain it better. Right? Like, if you're trying to sell this as a product, like, I don't think coming out and saying, hey, it's a hard concept to grasp, but like, don't worry. It is what it is. Like, I don't see a future where this doesn't at least get experimented on multiple times. And the concept that I have is, what about like Diablo 3? Like, there were people who made legitimate money off of Diablo, legitimate money. I knew a guy who paid his rent selling gold, when that was essentially basically became that thing, play to earn as a mindset. So like, there will be people who will try and figure out ways, and that's where I'm worried. What does this future look like for games? The nice good news, honestly, I think we were talking with Rurikon about it. He's like, I've got a backlog of like a huge backlog of games that don't bother with it. So as players, if this happen, if in mass, and the question of if in mass is going to be real critical here, because at its core, like, we just saw a video from Asmongold talking about legitimately that Blizzard won, he lost. When it comes to that, with this 7,000 something, dollar tiger mount, right? And you see people running around with it in game. I'm probably sure that they farmed up Blizzard money by coins and etc. But my goodness. And so when we start to see kind of those systems and those kind of features brought in, like, money is such a weird thing within gaming, because I don't think as gamers we are truly unified. I just don't. I think there's the vocal gamer who is unified, but unfortunately I feel like we do make up such a small minority that, we can be as mad as we want, but clearly Ubisoft isn't shaking just from that first answer alone. Oh my gosh. Varric says, don't get me wrong, blockchain technology must happen. I actually am fascinated as a programmer by blockchain technology. There's so much I still don't know, but I still keep studying it, right? And so Varric actually follows up with Gamers Unionize. That's something I've been calling for from a consumer advocacy group perspective, and there hasn't been a lot of buy-in. And so, and I know this gets me a lot of hate online, but I continue. This is just where I feel like it is, that I do feel like a lot of gamers are a lot of talk. When it comes to that, I think probably most likely this community is very passionate, and we could form some kind of advocacy group. But overall, when we're talking about the generalization of gamers and all in all, I think there's just, people like drama and they kind of follow it and they're like, oh, I'm mad about that. But then they're probably like, shaking their fists in the air, and yet they own probably like 1,000 NFTs. They're like, well, yeah, they want to be a part of something, but but then obviously their money and their actions speak differently. I'm not speaking to you, an individual. I'm talking about gamers as a global thing. Let me just break the mic. What's going on? All right. I'll have the link over for you guys live when this goes up on YouTube, and we'll get you. I'll send it over to you when we're done with the full video. So I spoke in your presentation about improving the relationship with players. If that is your goal with Quartz, it must be quite frustrating to see the feedback you received. It's part of the process. I would say it's a reaction that we're accustomed to. I think it's a great because it shows how engaged our players are and how passionate they are about their hobby and gaming in general. I'm going to highlight this for you guys because this is marketing 101. Like this, I'm not a marketer, but essentially doing YouTube, like there's things that you kind of end up picking up on that companies, for the most part, there's a handful that are like, oh, we don't want that out there, but then that only makes it go even more viral. So then I always question, like, did they really not want that to go? Like, did they really like Streisand affect this on purpose? But what this means is that positive or negative reaction is a reaction. They're looking for a reaction, and it's in a way hijacking who we are as human beings. It hijacks our brain because we just can't stop it. That's why the rabbit hole I've been going down is this, like, why is X, Y, and Z dying? It's the beautifully edited videos, but it's just been constant, like, just trashing on somebody who puts out content. And it's just like fascinating to me because at the end of the day, I don't draw the same conclusions that this individual does, but they still make these videos and I still watch them. And it essentially, you just can't stop yourself, right? Like, oh, what's he going to say about X, Y, and Z? And then you just kind of get into that mindset. A reaction's a reaction's a reaction. And in this kind of like process, like, that's right. They're just looking for a reaction. Positive and negative. People are talking about Ubisoft. I'm making this video about Ubisoft. And it's just something that just kind of, I think, snowballs from there. All right. Let's see your product process. In general, and looking at that, I think it's reassuring somehow. It shows our players love what we do and that they love Ubisoft and the ability to offer good games. So that's pretty cool. Still, obviously, it's a bit frustrating, yes, but I think overall it's okay and something that can be really understand. So we strongly believe that we are doing with Quartz and Digits goes in the right direction. So we are going to keep integrating, obviously listening to what our fans are telling us and how they're telling us as we go. And we can also adapt that what we're doing and where we're going. So that's our next move to make sure that we're doing will make even more sense to gamers. This is getting good, guys. Eric says, I have a report from an HP engineer who had to investigate it for HP for about 4 years ago, and they concluded that they needed more power that the world can generate in 20 years to run a blockchain system to replace currency. Is that where we're going, Varix? Like, do y'all think that like NFTs, digital and cryptocurrencies are going to essentially replace like government run like currency? I guess the government run currencies will still exist, but they just become this universal marketplace for trading currencies. Yeah, I am full of holes today. That's what I get for having green on my shirt here. I like it. It's so I'm going with it. It's gonna be fun. Oh man, you want it? Yes. Okay, that's interesting. That's really interesting. I think that everyone wants blockchains to do. It'll be interesting. Like I honestly, I read about it. I have crypto. Like I own some crypto, in that regards, but like you won't hear me talk about it because I don't want to influence anybody about it, right? And that's where the question we had. We were talking about this on the podcast with Force and Rory and Vulcan. Like when it comes to game reviews. Like imagine if you have a vested interest in that game because you own NFTs in that game. Imagine owning NFTs in a game and then you're putting out a review. Like you're like, is there going to be some kind of reporting? Like I'm not sponsored, right? But if I was sponsored, like I have to tell you, there's legal things about that. That's why the comment of like, how much do you get paid to play X game is so funny because it's so ignorant. It's like you clearly are new to the internet and the world. Welcome, young one, to the fold. But no, like you have to disclose. It's illegal. But with an NFT, like I could own it. I could never tell you about it, right? I don't own any NFTs, but I do own a little crypto. But I don't talk about it because I don't want to negatively. I don't like it. Like these are things that rattle around in my head. Like. That role, like I want to talk to you guys about games, and then like I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, he's only talking to us about this game because he owns those NFTs and he hopes that he could resell them for a profit. And the only reason why I think the NFT question is in place is that companies like this could have literally just let you sell your digital goods anyway, They could have just let you sell your digital goods for in-game, like for like that company's like currency, right? Like, hey, I'm really not liking, you know, this latest Ubisoft game. Let me go ahead and just like return it for some kind of credit, and then I can use that elsewhere. They could have done that all this time. What they want is they want the ability to sell the game, and then if you sell it, because NFTs have that kickback, that ability that they can continue to profit if those assets go up in value. That's the whole thing here. All right. Well, let's talk more about the sense of it. What do you guys think about a big positive in that gamers are missing about NFTs like digits can offer them? So he says, I think gamers don't get what a digital secondary market can bring to them. For now, because of the current situation and context of NFTs, gamers really believe that that it's first destroying the planet, and second, that it's just a tool for speculation. But what we at Ubisoft are seeing first is the end game. The end game about giving players the opportunity to resell their items once they're finished with them, and that they're finished by playing the game itself. They could have always done that. But I guess this is, you know, an opportunity that they can continue to profit if the value goes up. So it's really, for them, it's really beneficial, but they don't get it for now. Also, that's part of the paradigm shift in gaming. Moving from one economic system to another is not easy to handle. There are a lot of habits you need to do to go against a lot of your ingrained mindset that you have to shift. It takes time, and we know that. They're absolutely right about that. Like, these kind of things, when you look at the acceptance curve, like he's just spouting out psychology. And I don't think it's going to go over well with a lot of gamers. People like don't like being told this. Like, this is like, you know, like if we're mad, like, let us be mad. But it's like, he's just being like, guys, like, this guy is at least being blunt. And I could say one thing I do appreciate about it is the truth. Like, what you're reading right here, he's not sugarcoating it. He's telling you, like, no, this is happening. And that's something that's the conversation we have to have, right? Is this something that we support? Is this something we want to support or not? Yes or no? I'm not going to judge you if you say yes. I'm not judging you if you say no. Like, at the end of the day, like, I believe everybody should have the ability to communicate and talk and discuss and debate. And so at the end of the day, like, that's why I like making these kinds of videos. All right. Do you think that we would be better off launching courts without mentioning NFTs or blockchain if you had just launched the new platform that offered gamers something new without exposing them to the underlying mechanics answering it? Oh, he said you. I think I read it as we. I was like, oh, wow. Like, has he invested in this? All right. Oh, do you think you would have been? Actually, we tried it in a way, and that's what we named, and that's why we named them digits. We considered not speaking about the technology, but we know our players. They would have known digits were NFTs. So we decided that we would not be very smart to try and hide it. Our principle is to build a safe space and a safe environment with courts. So we need to be transparent about what we're doing. Deidre here says, I can also just comment on that bit of that. As Nicholas said, we knew that if we didn't reference the technology, players would have noticed. And that is one of the first concerns gamers have when it comes to blockchain, is that it's being implemented in the environment and the energy that it consumes. As such, it is a key for us to be able to show that we are aware of the concern and that we are making an active choice by going with Tezos. That communication is in line with our engagement and its cooperation. Our research has a very strong engagement, and when it comes to the environment and those concerns, it's transparent for us to be able to preempt the discussion and make players that we know have given the right step to protect the environment. It's not just the environment I fear. A lot of the feedback I read suggests that gamers view or fear of NFTs as being a new microtransactions and a new loot boxes that digits are going to make with games and Ubisoft more expensive. Are they right or wrong? Well, first, players are always right. Oh man, like this guy's so fascinating to me because they are our players. We love them, so they are always right. But I guess the consumer is always right kind of mindset. But your observation is correct. The first point I would say is that digits are fully operational. It's something that we've built outside the game's economy so that you can use chords or you can choose to not to use it. And what really matters is the personal choice. At no point will we force our players to use chords and digits. We just inform them that there is a new system that can provide them with a higher value than the existing ones. And that's the very first point. But how long is that separate? But how long, right? Horse armor was like just, hey, here's this thing, and then it just breeded a whole new industry, right? To the ire of many, but to the also celebration and success of many. I do stand by a belief that I have, that like the concept of like you've seen like the decline of gaming, right? I think the decline in gaming is a myth. I think that this is the best time to be a gamer, but that doesn't mean there aren't villains in the space. There aren't people who are being disingenuous. That doesn't mean that there are people who are trying to take your money and not necessarily give you any value, right? But that was true before microtransactions. That was true, after microtransactions. The fact that we get like real, like solid games is, I think, a testament to the passion that people have in making games. But then you go look at those same companies that you love, and they also have various gotcha games and mechanics and things like that. So can it be like a dangerous thing to play with? Yeah, it's dangerous. Like people, they're going to struggle with it. But it all comes down to, that's why I say the problem with microtransactions is just rooted in the concept of trust. Do you trust the developer? Do you trust the publisher? Like, are they doing good things? Do they, good game armor can blind you from and excuse some of the, things that they do. So it has to be a personal choice. I can't tell you how to spend your money, nor should I. Anyway, at no point will we force our players, etc., to inform them that there is a new system that can provide higher value than the existing one. So that's the very first point. Then there's a way that we built a platform regarding eligibility criteria. We made it so that it's somewhat hard for people to get into. You must purchase the game. You must play at least 2 hours. So it's a bit more complicated than for pure speculators to go in there and invest and inflate the markets. It's not that it's complicated either, but there are so many other options out there for speculators to get into and mess around with. We think that the first figures will have to collaborate our expectation that Quartz is primary for our players. That is what we're seeing, and we look at the data. Reminder, this is still just an experiment. We will adapt the volumes of the upcoming editions and that there is not too much inflation. So our main concern is to make sure that there is a secondary market, prices do not go too high, and that they're still accessible to regular players. So just for clarification, something like the skin NFT that we've released for Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and that it will also be available to buy through the game economy or even earned in game, and that can only become a unique NFT if acquired and or registered through Quartz. No, so the skins are exclusive to Quartz. You cannot get them in game if you do not want to go through Quartz. I don't have oh man, like that's, what do you guys think about that? Because at the same time, I'm like, if it's just these exclusive skins, do we end up creating this? Like, I go back to the default insult that kids were laying at each other who just had the default skin in Fortnite. Like, people will find a way to try and exclude people one way or the other. And now it's like, oh, is it like, does it go where you go and you buy those and you get hate, or does it get to a point where you're like, if you don't have them, are people, are people trying to exclude you in that regards? Man, this is interesting. Game value into monetary value. Just the fact that you can't earn them though, like it's like you got to buy them and then I guess you can resell them. It's going to be interesting to see. All right. One of the big beliefs tied to blockchain is decentralization, about taking the power away from big corporations and putting them in the hands of consumers. Looking from the outside in, I question instantly the value of decentralization for a company like Ubisoft. How is decentralization good for Ubisoft? So they say. So the question is really about player engagement and how you share the ecosystem with them. When you look at the valuation of just Ubisoft as the company, it's just over $3 billion in the US. I think something like that, but the whole ecosystem is valued more than $15 billion. So the ecosystem is much bigger than part of that company. The ecosystem is composed of the company, but also the players and the whole range of roles that the player is having in their ecosystem. For a centralized company like Ubisoft, it opens up the gates for our games to make more bigger by sharing a stake with our players, to building new experiences that are on top of that in each game that is to date. It is no way seen as a new game could be. I guess if they're saying like you buy that skin on Quartz and then you can apply it to like multiple games, then all of a sudden I can see how gamers would start to find some value in that, rather than buying a microtransaction in game A, but then having a microtransaction that actually applies to all the different games. No, I haven't done Saints Wake yet. I don't want to get into the numbers, but owning a percentage of a huge ecosystem might even be more interesting than owning a game today. I'm sorry that I just know that it's difficult to understand right now, and this kind of idea doesn't really exist in gaming. But we will see that ecosystem for a game can be much, much bigger, and that game is today in terms of creation for everyone. All right, let's see here. Jordan says, decentralization is a myth. This whole system requires megacorps, telos, governments, etc. to act as the backbone for the system. If you do not think that the megacorps aren't taking something off the top for themselves, it's full-heartedly. Now, that's actually built into the technology, like the fact that they can take stuff off that 100%. Like that's why they're actually interested in this, Jordan, is because the NFT itself has that built-in kickback system. It has that ability for any time that NFT is sold, their original creator of it gets that kickback. So if it goes up in value, like that's why it ends up being the way it is. That's why you're also seeing these companies push for it, because when they look at the secondhand markets, I am very popular today. Cookie. I'll eat it in a minute. When you look at this concept of secondary markets, that how some things tend to go up in value, like that never did a kickback. That's why you saw the big push for digital, because secondary game sale markets never did a kickback to the developer, the publisher. And they were like, how do we solve that problem? Well, let's make it digital. Well, when you make everything digital, then you end up running the problem that people aren't necessarily buying it. So now you see subscriptions, right? So you see the subscription, the Game Pass model. And so the next evolution comes down to it is that now they're trying to say like, hey, how can we allow for secondary, which they could have always let you sell it. They could have always let you return it for some kind of credit. We've never seen that happen. Like imagine if a game itself, a digital download, was an NFT. Like they could have always done that without the need of NFTs. Like that the myth here is that you need NFTs for this. But the whole market, the whole like investment, like all of that I think ends up being why we're seeing such a bigger push for it. And the fact that they could, like any kind of kickback on any kind of resale of a game built into the technology going right back to the publisher, like that's where I see this end up being kind of a bigger thing overall. And then the question is that do they then limit the scarcity of their digital code just to help inflate the value? Like and then we could get into the concept of Nintendo, right? Nintendo does not reduce the price of their games, and they just don't. And imagine if they decided to jump in on this, that will be a real telling sign if you end up seeing Nintendo jump into the NFT kind of market in and of itself. But who knows? If they don't, maybe Nintendo being Nintendo, as much as it can frustrate us sometimes, maybe they'll end up being somebody who's like kind of a safe haven for games. If you don't want to sit here and play to earn, you just want to continue to, oh my gosh, play to have fun. The most cynical feedback I've read from gamers has been pointed to all this being a ploy to line up Ubisoft's pockets with more money, but you see it as being about the creating a deeper player engagement experience. Yes, to model the plays to earn about allowing players to make their own money by adding value to the whole ecosystem, and it's not just about Ubisoft actually. I don't think Ubisoft is really caring about. I just don't see if they were like, I don't think there's any company going like, how can we make Brian money? You know, who knows? Maybe there's a company out there, you know, Brian Inc. Who knows? I could say all Brians in the world. Let's see how we can get them to profit or something. All right. Considering that Ubisoft is talking to the lead this emerging space, when you see that happening in games with Stalker 2's team, when they announced the NFT integration and ditched it after player backlash, how does that make you feel? What was your reaction? It saddened to see that some resistance based on misunderstanding, but I am not sure that we can really compare that to Stalker 2 was trying to do with what we're trying to achieve with Quartz. We're not in the same use case for the players, I would say. I know that this has just been a couple of weeks since the launch of Quartz, but what are they doing to the key learnings that you can take away from the launch and the launch of Digits? We have learned that this hurdles they've put in place and the eligibility criteria and how it's worked. A very big majority of the 2,500 tokens ordered in the first 2 weeks, they were from Ghost Recon Breakpoint players. And that didn't start playing, and when we launched Quartz on December 7th, they were playing the game for a very long time beforehand, and it was good to see that because of us, that that was the biggest risk. And that the market would have preempted by speculators, which was absolutely what we didn't want to do. So he's saying right here that the biggest market as a part of the system was from the active players at Breakpoint, which that's what I'm talking about. Like, I think players that get invested, they're going to support it. That's where it's like when all these sales come through, like that's oh man, I hate to be, I feel like I'm the prophet of bad news often. I'm very joyful. I'm very hopeful for the future of gaming. But there's some things like this, I'm like, oh man, I think people are going to think that I'm really excited about this. I'm not personally excited about this. But I'm going to continue to try and educate myself on this. So at least if nothing else, we can have a real conversation about this. And Chili Demon, thank you so much for the 5 gifted subs. You are a freaking legend. Appreciate you. From Julie and me and Chris. Boop, 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 boop. Maybe we just want to add that from a technical standpoint that we were very happy that everything worked as expected. It wasn't easy because we were built on top of Tezos, the blockchain, which is not the obvious choice for when you're building NFTs, but we wanted to commit to this environmentally friendly choice, and we are very happy with that. So I think from the user experience, it's easy to onboard Quartz as a platform. Do you guys see a future in which players own the game themselves and that the games are even NFT, what I was talking about earlier? That's part of the use case. That's exactly what they're trying to do. That's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to turn these in. They're trying to turn your digital downloads into an NFT. That's going to be ultimately fascinating. Like, are they going to limit the scarcity? Are they going to artificially say that we're only going to allow 1 million downloads, 5 million, 20 million downloads, thus inflating the value of the game, especially if it's popular? Like, that is wild to me. I mean, this is pure speculative market right now, right? We can only speculate on exactly what's going to happen. Because then you get the ability to resell it. You get the ability to collect it. Imagine them putting a number on it saying, hey, you can, like, this is number 1, you know, like who owns the 00001 of the game itself. That's exactly what I feel like they're working towards. He confirms it right here. And you see the future in which the majority of Ubisoft games, if not all the games, are tied to quartz and digits in some way. Actually, we are a very decentralized company already, and that each of the team's projects can decide if they want to have digits or not, or to use that quartz problem itself. But for how long? Imagine this being so profitable for Ubisoft. Imagine them just going like, whoa. And so they have the choice now. But at some point, just like you see it, like they don't even have to go in and say that gamers don't have, like, the developers don't have the choice. They can just like, well, I mean, your budget's coming up next week, you know, like that. There's a thing called like that invisible pressure, right? That I could see being applied here. All right, let's see here. All right, yeah. So yeah, they say it's open. It's open for now. We'll see how that changes in the next 10 years. But obviously, the Tom Clancy games would be the first point of call. But here,
Potentially.
that's how I feel. I missed an opportunity. I know this video is going to be pretty long, but I missed an opportunity at the start of the video and be like,
Hi, I represent Ubisoft. Welcome. Your soul is mine.
all right. Moving from games then, during your presentation on Quartz and Digits, you mentioned the possible future acquisition of decentralized autonomous organizations. And then what did you mean by that? Did I mishear? I mean the future of user acquisition. When you talk about DAO guys, the Yield Guild games can see themselves as a new tool for acquisition in the games because of you build a good play to earn experience for those guilds. And you come to your game and they will boost up your ecosystem and the net effects of what you need to engage with the whole economy and community. So yeah, it's just more of that marketing expense and how you acquire new games. But that is how your game will be, and it will attract new to the DAO guides. That's kind of right now over my head. If you guys can clear that up for me, let me know. Attracting guilds talks very specifically to the play to earn space. Is that something you're interested in? And if so, would it be via new IP, or would you look to apply pay to earn to existing IPs? Yes, we're interested.
Yes, we're interested in pay to earn, you fool! What have we been talking about this whole time, baby?
For us, to the same logic, that is what we're going to do today. So they were trying to think of Ubisoft games as a place where your experience can provide the most value possible meeting. There are different games and different kinds of value you play the game. There's the fun. Of course, the pleasure the pleasure you take by just playing. And then there's the fact that you can earn things. For instance, like in Assassin's Creed, you learn about history, and then you worked on the experiments in old games where you could learn new set of skills. So that game can be a lot of things that it brings to a lot of players. Adding in a real value reward might be the next addition to top off the value of games already offers. I think that's going to be the next addiction. Right? And then there's going to be that pressure on us as gamers. Oh my gosh, I'm not playing. Imagine gaming being stressful. That would suck. Not stressful in the sense that I'm up against a hard challenge in the game, but imagine feeling like you're behind in life after life kicks you in the balls repeatedly, right? Like, oh man, I got out of school and I own all this debt and I can't buy a house and I can't do this. I got to go to work, and as soon as I get off work, I better be freaking gaming because man, that's like I'm falling behind. If you ever feel like guys like that, hit me up in Discord. We can have a chat. Protect your health and sanity. Yeah. All right. There is the fun, of course, the pleasure of that you take by playing. I can have fun at work, right? Like they're describing a job. And then there's the fact that you can learn things, for instance, and I covered that already. So, of course, this is just a continually of what we were already doing, but it just might be handled well. I would say, or properly, that why it does not make sense to use an existing game with an existing economy and trying to move to cover the play-to-earn economy. It truly needs to be built from scratch because it's very different to think about the game economy and the monetization. All right, we're getting here close to the end, or this is the last part of the article. And then thanks, guys. If you made it all the way to the end, sound off with Dragon's Love, Dragon's Life in the comments of this video. Will you already in discussions to license Ubisoft characters as crossovers with the other NFT games, like in Axie from Axie Infinity, what looks like a rabbit? Are you guys looking at things like that to try and spread Ubisoft brand within the existing NFT space? In the past, we made some experiments by joining Kryptonic Kitties with rabbits, and there is definitely an avenue for cross-branded experimentation like that. For now, this is nothing that is about to be shipped, but yes, internally, that is probably a point of some kind of activation is with what the technology provides in the end. And that kind of concludes. Yeah, that's definitely the end of the article. So let me get you guys this link in case you want to go read it for yourself, etc. And this link will also be in the description of said video. But at the end of the day, this is incredibly revealing. This is incredibly revealing for what they intend. And so essentially, I think if anything anything good that you can gain from this, I believe education is key. The good thing about this is that they're not mixing words. They're not double speaking. They're being very direct about what their plan is. And that's the good thing, right? Ultimately, the market and the economy and us as players will decide. And that's where at the end of the day, it's going to be interesting. I can't sit here and tell you that it's going to be completely negative because I don't know that. I can't say this is going to be good for the gaming industry because I don't know that. This is a change. Microtransactions did change the industry. Good things came out of it. If you don't think good things came out of microtransactions, we should have a one-on-one talk. There have been good things to come out of it. There's also been bad things to come out of it. There isn't, in this case, when I look at this, is that this isn't 100% one way or the other, but this is something that I am actively following with great interest and passion because this does concern me. This concerns me as a gamer. This concerns me as a parent. This concerns me as somebody who lives on this planet. This concerns me in so many ways that the only thing I feel like I can do is educate myself, learn as much as I can about this as possible, understand what people's goals are, but also from an economic perspective. Economies are essentially what end up forming around this. And as soon as that gets set and as soon as it gets supported by players that end up making businesses around this, it's going to be interesting to see overall. I do stand by what I said in an earlier video this year that content creation is a part of that play to earn. People feel like I'm disingenuous when I say that, but when you look at the numbers, big streamers, or at least the small and medium streamers, know that there is an impact. Like they should have to play one game that they are known for, right? Like Ninja is known for Fortnite. When he tries to stream Final Fantasy 11, like clearly there's a numbers game there, and he has obviously made a career out of that. I have not. Like, this is not my job. This is a passion that I have that I get to share with you guys, and I appreciate y'all when y'all hang out with me. And so hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this discussion. We're going to continue this discussion as we dive into the rest of the stream. If you're over here on YouTube, be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for your support. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully I'll see you in my next video, but until then, take care.
A little off topic, but I just want to say thank you for providing me a friendly, fun, and optimistic community. Baby. Coming from an MMO community filled with toxicity, this is an amazing breath of fresh air. Keep it up, baby. Oh, yeah.